Hey, my people, how you guys doing? I hope you guys are well, keeping safe. Welcome back again. My name is John Mutombo. Today, I will be talking about help to buy equity loan scheme. There's a lot of government schemes out there. This is one of the government scheme, but there's quite a few. The shared ownership and different things. But I think the two major ones are the equity loan scheme, which is the help to buy, and also the shared ownership. Today I will only focus on the equity loan scheme, and then the next video I post, which will be sometimes next week, it will be about help to buy, because I know a lot of people, they want to find out information about this. So guys, stick around and keep up to date. I shall see you soon. Peace. See y'all. Bless. Hey, welcome back again, people. Yes. Nice to see you guys connected. Stay connected and don't forget to subscribe, to like, to share, to comment. I like the comments. I know recently a lot of people have been commenting, so guys, stick to it because it's giving me ideas. I'm answering some of your questions, and I know especially the topic I'm talking about today is one of you guys who commented and wanted to find out more about this in one of my previous videos, hence why now I'm discussing it. So I'm all under your service, people. Keep asking questions, keep commenting, and obviously I'm here to provide as much knowledge and to help you guys in terms of finding out knowledge and solving out some of your problems. Today we're talking about the help to buy scheme. What is help to buy equity loan scheme? Right, this is a government scheme. There are plenty, as I mentioned, but today I'm only going to focus on this, and then next week I'll focus on a different scheme, which is shared ownership. But for now, I'm talking about the help to buy loan government scheme. So this scheme is pretty much a scheme that the government has put in place to help people. So if you know, those who are struggling to get into the property ladder, because I know right now, a lot of people are trying to get to the property ladder, but however, because of the current circumstances, property prices are very high. It's almost impossible to get into the property ladder. So the government has kind of they're trying to come up with a solution to fix this problem. I've got my opinions regarding that. Whether it's good or bad, that's for you guys to decide. I've got my personal opinion, which I don't want to influence you guys, because at the end of the day, I'm not in a position to tell you guys do this or do that. I'm just giving you guys as much information so that you guys are well informed, in order so that when you're making a decision, you're making a well informed decision. So this scheme pretty much is to do with helping people who are struggling to get into the property ladder. As I mentioned before, they don't have enough money, so what the government is doing is now loaning, it's giving you the money in order for you to put a deposit. So in England, the government gives up to 20%, so from anywhere 0 to 20% deposit in order for you to put into the your 5%, because with this one you have to pay minimum 5%. You still have to play, but it's not going to be a lot compared to the required deposit, but you still have to pay a 5% deposit. So the government is going to top up the rest. In England, the government is willing to give up to 20%. However, for those who are in London and Greater London, the government is going further by giving 40% because of the property prices. So if you're in London or anywhere Greater London, Watford and all those places, you still part of that deal and that scheme, you still fit the criteria. So the government will give you up to 40% to put a deposit in the property, and you only have to put 5%. So that's pretty much in basic term. I don't want to confuse things too much, but in basic term, that's the government is giving that people money between 20% to 40% in order for you now to use that money and put a deposit in a property. Just to give you guys a quick example for what I'm saying, just in case some are still confused and don't understand what I'm trying to say. So let's say, for example, you want to buy a property, it's worth 200,000. So if that property worth 200,000, within that 200,000, because you are applying for this scheme, you will only need to put 5%. You can put more if you have more, but the minimum requirement is 5%, which most people tend to go for. So you put 5%, and which is 5% of 200,000 is what? 10,000. So your part will only be to put 10,000 for the deposit, and the government now will come and put an extra 20% for England. Don't forget, I'm mentioning about England, not London, England. So the government will come and put 20% of that 200,000, which will be 40,000. So the government will come and give you 40,000, and you have the 10,000 together. You put the deposit for that house, which will be 50,000, and you will only be left with a mortgage to pay of 150,000, because you know 50,000 is already been paid for your deposit. So that's how the scheme works for the 20% for those who are applying outside London or outside Greater London. For those who are applying in London, the government will pay up to 40%. So which means the government will come and pay £80,000 of that loan. You know, so £200,000 worth of mortgage, you will only put again still 5%, which is again it's still the same 80,000, and the government will come and put 80,000, which means you'll pay a mortgage of 90,000, and you only have 110,000 left in your mortgage, for your mortgage. So just as a quick example for you guys, if you don't understand what I'm saying, just so that you can at least try to picture it and visualize what I'm trying to say when I'm talking about 20%, 40%, and 5%. That's that. So talking about the pros and cons now, I'll start with the positive and end with the negative. So when it comes to this scheme, the Help to Buy loan scheme, what are the pros for it? What are the positive sides to it? There are some positive sides. Number one, obviously, is helping you purchasing your dream home. You know, right now properties are very, very expensive, especially, you know, a property that you see, you call it a dream home you want to buy, you know, very expensive with the current market, the current situation. When you're talking, we're looking at inflation, you know, prices of, you know, food, the cost of living is very, very expensive. So it makes it very difficult for, you know, a normal person, you know, when I'm saying normal person, I'm saying the average person, to raise a deposit in order to put, you know, in this property, to buy a property, because cost of living is very, very expensive. Rent, paying bills, all the bills. It's almost impossible for somebody to raise money in order to put a deposit. So the government has come up with this to help people. That's why it's called a Help to Buy scheme, to help people put that money in order to get their dream home. And it's also good. One of the other positive side, which I can think of it right now on top of my head, is it's interest free for 5 years. So, you know, if you're somebody who's very good at planning, you're organized, you've got a plan that, you know what, you're gonna pay off the government within that 5 years because it's interest free, you're gonna pay back their loan, then it's a win-win situation. You're on the good side because it's interest free. So it's pretty much you're getting a huge loan interest free for 5 years, guys. That is a bonus, I must say, because the government nowadays, they don't give anything for free. So something like that, it is a big bonus. And 5 years, you know, it is pretty much of a long time for an interest-free loan. So those who are organized, they can take that to their advantage, come up with a sort of plan to, I don't know, whether it's saving or they have other businesses aside, in order to find a way to pay back the government back their money. Because remember, for those who are borrowed 40,000 from the government, which is the 20%, you still have to pay back that 40,000. So you have to come up with a plan in order to raise that 40,000, because the government will need that money. If not, after the 5 years, interest comes on it, and that will lead to the negative side, which we don't want to deal with it right now. Right now, we're focusing on the positive. So if you can come up with a plan, which it is difficult, because at the end of the day, it is a Help to Buy scheme. If you're already going for the Help to Buy scheme, it means that you don't have the means to afford the actual deposit. So you're going for a Help to Buy scheme because it could be that, you know, jobs are not paying properly, or you're getting money, but most of your money goes out in bills and the cost of living. So it's rather difficult to raise that kind of money within that short space of time. It is a bonus, and I think that's one of the positive things from it. For those who are going for it, make sure you take advantage out of it. And yeah, so I think that's pretty much the two positive I can actually think of this. But it is a good scheme out there for, you know, to help people in order to get them in the property ladder. Right, now we are going towards the negative side, you know, the side of the spectrum where nobody wants to be in. But you know, unfortunately I have to bring it up because I want you guys to be well informed, and it's so that you guys are making consensus, you know, agreement or decision regarding this topic, and you're well aware. So right, the negative side is that once you go in these schemes, you're very restricted in terms of your possibilities, what you can do with the property. You know, there's a lot of restrictions when it comes to that. Number one, you know, this is about property investing. You know, I advertise and I make sure I promote people to be, you know, self-dependent, to have investments out there in order to help them, you know, build their future, secure their future, build financial freedom, you know, and also generational future freedom for, you know, the young ones, for the kids. One of the negative things regarding this, which I tend to find, is you're restricted. Number one, you can't invest in this property. This kind of property, if you're thinking, okay, I'm gonna get this government scheme, and then within 1 or 2 years I'm gonna, you know, rent it out and then make money out of it because it's brand new, it's gonna be expensive. It doesn't work like that, people. With these properties, you're not allowed to do anything. You're not allowed to rent it out or make any investment until the deal is done. So until you've paid back the government their money, their full money, you know, that they've given you to help you buy the property, you can't do anything with it. You can't invest in it, and there's a lot of restrictions in terms of, you know, development and things you can or you can't do. So the second negative thing, which again for property investors, you know, once you're, you know, for those who are already property investors, they know the tricks to property investors, they know the secrets to property investing. You always buy low, sell high. Always buy low, sell high. And I think when it comes to this sort of properties, especially, you know, with this scheme, when you're going to the Help to Buy scheme, you can't buy any properties. It has to be a brand new house, a newly built house. So you can't go for just a good house in the streets and increase the value. No, you have to go for a brand new house, which is a downside, because the thing about brand new houses, you're buying it at the peak. You know, so you're literally buying it once it's freshly built, nobody has lived there. You're literally buying it at its highest price, you know, and they're very, very expensive. And once you move in there, what happens to the price? Completely drops because it's no longer new. Before you moved in, it's new. It's being sold in the highest price. But as soon as you move in there, it's no longer newly built. It's no longer freshly built. So you automatically, by moving in there, you reduce the price of the property. So if you're trying to sell it, let's say even 1 or 2 years down the line, you want to sell that property, or 3 years down the line, you want to sell that property, and the prices have not increased, you will not buy it within that price that you will not sell it. I mean, within the price that you bought it, most likely the price will be way low, and you literally will be in for a shock on how low it would be. So, you know, when it comes to property investing, that's the worst move you want to do. So I don't advise that. I don't tend to go for newly built houses. I don't like going for newly built houses just because of that. I mean, you have to wait for a very long time for the equity to build, because if you're thinking of 3 to 5 years time, it's almost impossible. But there are occasions that you know, equity does increase, but most of the time you will be negative equity. We don't want you know, once you invest in properties, you don't want to be in negative equity, because at the end of the day, then everything will turn into a liability, because when you're thinking of all the loans and everything you'll be paying, and you know, if you want to sell, you can't sell because you're in a negative equity. It's not a position that an investor should be in. If you're a strategic investor, you know how to make good moves, you don't want to be in that kind of position. So always remember that. And that's one of the main reasons why I don't like to go for brand new houses, because me moving in there reduces the value of the property. So guys, when we're talking about property investment, we're talking about bringing money in. We're talking about cash flow. You know, we're talking about assets, creating fortunes, creating financial freedom, creating generational freedom. But you can't do that with this kind of property, because this kind of property does not create assets. In contrary, it creates liabilities. And a liability, as I've mentioned in previous videos, is anything that brings money out of your pocket becomes then a liability. Things that brings money into your pocket are assets. And as a property investment, we look for assets. Somewhere where we can get a property, buy it, rent it out, and have money coming in our pocket. With this kind of property, you cannot bring money in, but money does come out of your pocket all the time, and especially after the 5-year period. You're paying your mortgage, which is your normal mortgage with the bank. You'll be paying the interest, so all this is not good for investments, because at the end of the day, it's taking money out of your pocket. And after the 5-year period, as I mentioned, if you're not strategized, which most people, it's almost impossible to pay off the government that loan within 5 years. But some people are very skillful, they're very organized, and if you're like that, then you're good. But for the majority who will have to still pay this loan after 5 years, then that's where the trouble begins. Because then the government puts interest on top of that loan. And usually the interest starts with, I think it's 1.75%. And obviously on top of that, it keeps increasing according to in line with the RPI. So it will, most of the time it will always be increasing. And on top of that, every year you get an extra 1% added. So it's always increasing. You literally every year you'll be paying. You're thinking, like, why am I not finishing paying this money? It's like you're paying, but it keeps adding up on top, and it's like a never-ending race. And you literally end up, reaching a point where it will be a shock, because money will always be increasing. So that's why I always tell people, always, make sure you be careful when you go for this kind of scheme, because after, for the first few years, 5 years, 4 years, it's sweet. You're only paying, you're paying your mortgage. It's not sweet, because at the end of the day, it's still liabilities, but it can be manageable. You're paying the mortgage and you're paying the government loan. The price is the same. You're used to paying the same amount of money each year. But after that, it's no longer the same. Money will be increasing constantly, along with other fees. I think there's a £1 fee that had to be paid also on top of that, because of all the management fees and all those kind of things. But those are small fees. But the interest rate, the more it's increasing, the more money is coming out of your pocket. You guys who are, you want to be wise, you want to be smart, you're saying, this is all daunting, it's so stressful, I'm just going to pay off the whole 5 years, I'm going to come up with a plan in order to pay the government, to make sure after the 5-year cooling off period, I pay off everything, and then I don't have to be stressed or tied with the government in terms of the loan. I wish I could say it's as smooth and sweet as that, but it's not, guys. The government they're not stupid. At the end of the day, whatever they do, they need to make profit, out of it. That's how I see it. They don't give things for free. They always find ways to make profit out of it. So in order for you guys to be able to pay off the loan to the government, if you're gonna set up either, it could be by direct debits, by paying extra, or to pay off as cash, you want to buy it as a bulk, do it as a bulk, or you want to split it into two, you pay the first half and the second half back to the government. It goes through application. So number one, you have to get a conveyancer, no, not a conveyancer, a surveyor, sorry. And it's not just any surveyor, it's a specific type of surveyor who will come and survey your house. They call RICS. So you have to get them to come and survey your house. You have to pay them. So all these fees are you the one who have to pay. And you have to get a solicitor to deal with the legality or the legal matters and everything in terms of the loan agreement, and to find out the exact amount which you will need to pay. A solicitor will have to do that, which you have to pay yourself. And finally, you have to also pay administration fees. So the banks, the government's administration who will be dealing with your case, the paperwork and everything, so that this process can be run smoothly. You also have to pay them, and I think with those it varies between £200 to £300. So altogether, you're literally looking at minimum £1,000, between £1,000 or even more. So there are still more money coming out of your pocket. So again, as investors, we don't look for money to come out of our pocket, because liability is a no as an investors. We look for assets. Anything that has liability written on it, investors run away from it. So that if you guys think, yep, you're gonna be wise, you're gonna pay it off, it's not simple. You still have to pay the government, and you still have to make sure all these procedures are in place in order to now come up with a plan in order to pay the government. This money is paid before even starting paying the government back their money. So you still have to pay, let's just say £1,000 to get all these things in place in order to come up now with a plan to pay off the government. Yes. And again, you may want to be wise and say, you know what? I'm gonna wait. House prices increase. 5 years, I'm sure the house price is gonna increase. I'm gonna make money. I'm gonna sell this property just before the 5 years, even 4 years. I'm gonna sell it so I can pay off the government their money, and I'm gonna have the equity, and I can now use it now to properly get in the property market without even the government being involved, or I can refinance it. Yes, it's good, but don't forget, whatever increase in price, in whatever your property's price, the equity that goes into your property, and if the price goes up, the government also, their percentage goes up, because they're also benefiting from the increase of your property. So don't forget the 20%. Whether for those who went or planning to go for the 20%, those are outside London and outside Greater London. If that 20% that the government borrowed you guys, if your property increases, then that 20% will also increase, which means you have to pay more than the actually agreed price at the beginning, because your property price has now increased, which means they will look at the valuation of the percentage of that new price, not the old price. I know all this may seem a bit confusing, percentages, numbers and all that, so I'm gonna give you guys an example just to make it a bit clear, because I know a lot of people are visual learners and they like, learning by examples and all those sort of things. So we go back to the beginning. The property was worth 200,000. You purchased it for 200,000. The government are still at 20% in England. The government has put 20% for you, which was 40,000. The 40,000 is 20% out of the 200,000 purchase price. So that 40,000. Now let's say you want to sell the house because you want to pay off the government, and before you sell the house you realize, house price have increased, so from 200 it's now gone up to 300,000 or 300 grand. You're happy, wow, I've made 100 grand equity out of this property. Yes, but that also means now, but when you're selling it, the government will take the 20% out of the 300,000, not the 200 anymore, because the house is no longer worth 200, even though initially you agreed it will be, you purchased it for 200 and it's at 20%, which you're paying the government out of the 200, but because you are now selling it or refinancing it with a new purchase price, which, because the equity has gone up, the government's also benefiting from that. So rather than paying the government 40,000, you will now have 60,000, because the new purchase price is now 300,000, and within that 300,000, 20% of the 300,000 is 60. So you will move from 40 to 60. It's a huge amount, 20,000 difference, just from an equity which the government is eating from you. That equity is yours, but the government's taking it because your house price has increased. You're bonded with them, they've helped you at the beginning, and you also need to help them out with some profit, you get me? So that's how it works. And for those who are buying in London and Greater London, if the government gave you guys a loan of 40% of 200,000 is 80,000. And out of that 80,000, if you're selling a property from 200,000, it's gone up to 300,000, and now you pay 40% of 300,000 rather than 200,000. So you actually be paying back to the government 120,000 rather than 80,000. That's a lot of money, guys. and that was some of the negative side of it. I don't want to dwell too much on the negative, even though I did. So I'm already assuming you guys are suspecting my position in this matter, but I don't want to say it. That's for you guys to decide. Some people also ask me, when does this deal end? Because this Help to Buy scheme, you know, there should be an ending to it. When does it end? So that people, they know when, if for those who are interested in it, they want to jump in and get into the, you know, this scheme before it ends. It actually ends next year, March 2021. So for those who are still interested to get into this scheme, to benefit from it, make sure you do it before March 2021, because it will come to an end. I hope you guys liked it. I know there's a lot of mathematics, there's a lot of percentages and all this and that. It can be a bit confusing, but you know, just make sure you do your due diligence. I just try to give you guys as much information, basic. I didn't want to complicate too much, because it does get more complicated than this, but I just wanted to make it in layman terms, very basic, so that everybody can understand when it comes to equity, Help to Buy, equity loan. Hope you guys don't forget to subscribe, click that notification bell on, so that you know, in future videos you guys will be aware, and you know, you can see when the videos are whenever I post a video. And stay tuned. I shall see you guys soon. Peace out, champ. Yes.